Hello, guys. Welcome to week 50 of Books Being Sick. I'm Nick. Thanks for being here. We're 50 weeks in, kind of wild. And today I'm going to share with you my 10 favorite reads of 2024 that are not new books. Only one of these books actually came out in the year of 2024. The rest of these are, some of these are quite old. Some of them are 20 years old, 10 years old. But they're older books because, again, I'm kind of still new to the reading scene. And so there are an array of books that I still need to read that I'm kind of going through before I can kind of have a mostly modern reading list. But I don't know if I ever really want a super modern reading list for my year. I love reading these older books, and I just have such a great time doing it. And these 10 books are just so phenomenal. Sorry, someone said in the comments, I'm never looking at the camera. I'm going to try. It just always kind of weirds me out because I'm looking at my face. So that's why I'm always like looking to the side. That's the reason. There's no other reason that I'm just like, it's just weird to look at my face. Anyways, these 10 books are just so good, so incredible. Some of them life-changing, I would say. A lot of them life-changing. Some of them were just a really good time, and I can't wait to share all 10 of these with you. I just want to thank you real quick for being here for the entire year. I've got 2 weeks left until this is officially like a full year of doing these videos every week. And it's been a lot of fun. And I just appreciate you. I hope you guys had a good Christmas, good holiday, whatever. I know I did because I did very little. And I got an amazing book. Can I share with you real fast? I'm going to get into the list. I'm not going to take up too much of your time. But I got this Titanic Folio Society edition copy here of A Night to Remember by Walter Lord. This thing is amazing. I'll share this more in another video. I got some other stuff. Tune in next week because I actually have some new reads to share with you that have been I've got a lot to say about them. But for today, I'm just going to keep it to my 10 favorite reads of 2024. And let's get started with number 10. I have the stack here and it is upside down. So this is, that was unintelligent. Whoa! Oh, God. Okay. We're good? We're fine. Okay, so at number 10, I have a memoir. I read a lot of amazing memoirs this year. Memoirs were something that I never really thought I would be interested in, but then I read I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy, and I was like, this is so good. I really enjoyed that book. It was just so real, and just like I really was feeling stuff. And so I was like, oh, this is memoirs, because I think maybe I just had it in my head that all memoirs were like celebrity memoirs that were just like, look at how cool I am. But that's obviously not the case at all. So I even read a celebrity memoir in From Here to the Great Unknown, which is about Lisa Marie Presley, one of my favorite reads of the year. It did not make the top 10, but I really loved it. A lot of heart in there, and it was a really beautiful read. But my favorite memoir that I read in 2024, and coming in at number 10 of my favorite reads for this year, are Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. This one, they were all the ones I read this year, The Glass Castle, they were all genuinely quite incredible. But this one just felt the most, just hit me the hardest, I guess you would say. The one I think back to the most often, the one I most want to reread is this one. Michelle is just so open and candid about her experience in growing up in America with a Korean mother and an American father, and the experience in losing her mother and her trying to find her identity. And it's just, it's so beautiful and so heartbreaking and so funny at times. And Michelle's writing is phenomenal. I hope she writes more. Maybe she has. I probably should have looked that up before making this video. But if she hasn't, I hope she writes more because she is really good at it. Check out Japanese Breakfast, her band, which is also a fantastic band. This book will make you cry. If you have an H Mart around, probably in there. It is really good. That is my 10th favorite read of the year. Can't recommend it enough. Moving on to number 9, the number 9 spot, which is actually the only book that came out this year in 2024. It was shortlisted for the Booker Prize, did not win. And I'll leave it at that. Maybe you have a guess as to what it is. It is James by Percival Everett. This book was not at all what I was expecting, and I mean that in a good way. I don't know really what I was expecting. I knew that it was a retelling of Huckleberry Finn, which I've not read. So, right off the bat, I was like, is this for me? Like, am I going to really understand what's going on? As it happens, in my opinion, you really don't need to read Huckleberry Finn. I didn't, and I absolutely love this book. Beautifully written. Percival Everett. Again, I'm going to say the same for all of these authors, but I cannot wait to read more by him. I hear Trees is very, very good, which I'll be picking up as soon as I find it. But this is just full of adventure. There's a lot of, there are a lot of, like, you know, unsettling moments and you know, moments that make you just want to punch the air. But the adventure and the humor, surprisingly too, is just so well done. And this book there might be one other book that I read faster, but this is a genuine crushable book that I could not put down. I finished it in like a day and a half, 2 days, something like that. It's just one of those ones where the writing is so addicting and the story is progressing so quickly that you just can't put it down. I know that's a cliche review thing to say about a book, but it is the case for this one. We're reading this one for my book club this year. Everybody seems to be loving it. It's well worth your time. This is an easy one to find. I think this is pretty much available everywhere. So if you have a free 5-6 hours, it is really, really good. Okay, that is my number 9. Number 8. Number 8 is one that I'm surprised made the list because before I had read it, I was like, wow, this is gonna be just like reading the movie, because this book is based off of a movie that is a very popular movie, that is a movie I loved growing up, that I've seen 1.5 billion times. And so I think that's why I was like, okay, like, let's read this one. People say it's really good. I'm cool to just read the movie. However, Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton is, I don't want to say not at all like the movie, because it is about a park with dinosaurs in it, so that's unique enough in itself. But the actual storyline and the character motivations and how the characters kind of behave and their general personalities and the different storylines as well, there's so much more going on in this book, and some of it is quite a bit different from the movie, and I loved it. I really loved it. I was so entertained reading this book. There's so much information, so much science, so much knowledge that Michael Crichton obviously had to learn about to put into this book, but he still makes it very, very approachable and digestible, and most importantly, entertaining. I could not put it down. I'm going to say that about every one of these books, but it was just so well done. You know, there are actually some scenes, if you've seen the movies, there's Jurassic Park, and then there's the second one, The Lost World, and then there's like 3 and some other ones. But in The Lost World, there's that opening scene with the little dinosaurs on the beach. That's in this book. So there were some moments from The Lost World that I guess they that are in this book that they didn't put into the Jurassic Park movie, because obviously I guess you gotta come up with a digestible movie plot line too, but and a movie script. But yeah, there's a lot going on in this book that I loved, and there were a few moments where I was like, wait, isn't that from the second one? But anyways, yeah, so good. Jurassic Park, if you want to be entertained, that is the one for you. Don't think that because you've seen the movie 1,000,000 times, the book is going to be kind of redundant, because the book is absolutely different enough that you're going to be kind of surprised, I think. Okay. Moving on. Oh, so I actually don't have my copy of number 7 in the number 7 spot, because I lent it to a friend. But it is Foster by Claire Keegan. I had to have a Claire Keegan book in here. I read all of her books earlier in the year, like January, February, I believe it was. And some might be like, oh, why not Small Things Like These? And you know what? Great question, because Small Things Like These is also phenomenal. I just had to pick one of the two. And I think that Small Things Like These and Foster, of all the books that I've read so far to date by authors, those two by the same author are so, like, they're so close in terms of quality and, how much I love them. So ask me tomorrow, I could put Small Things Like These on there. Ask me the next day, it'll be Foster again. I'm choosing Foster because I just feel like that one is one I think back to just a little bit more. I really loved it. It's a really heartbreaking but heartwarming. It's one of those books and stories that's the perfect blend of heartwarming and heart-wrenching. If authors can pull off that combination, I am going to love them forever, and that happens in Foster. You will absolutely love it. It's a short read. You can crush it in like 1.5 hours, probably 2 hours, maybe. Well worth your time. It's if you're a parent, you're gonna love it that much more, or be that much more heartbroken by it. I don't know, but worth every minute of your time. It is so good. Foster by Claire Keegan. Any Claire Keegan, just go get any Claire Keegan, and you'll be happy. And also, before I continue, I just wanted to mention that there's a book on here that I finished that I mentioned in a few socials that was gonna be an easy top 5. And I don't have it in my list here. It's The End of Loneliness by Benedict Wells. This, you know what? It ended up, I feel like, just being too fresh of a read that I just couldn't figure out where to really slot it, because I had already kind of had my 10 laid out, and I was like, I don't know where to put this one. So I gotta sit on it a little longer before I really know where it would fit in this list. So that's why it's not in here, if you're curious. That is the reason. But The End of Loneliness, really, really good. Really, really good. Okay. Oh, I can't believe I haven't coughed yet. This is so good for me. I've been coughing like a psychopath. Are you guys sick? I'm sick. I'm so sick, but I feel fine. You know what I mean? I'm just coughing, and it sounds like I'm dying, but feel totally fine. I don't know what it is. Number 6, I have The Stand by Stephen King. Now, some might be like, what? You read The Stand, and it's number 6? It's not number 1, number 2? It made my top 10. I absolutely, it's my 6th favorite read of the entire year. I loved it. That said, I just feel like Stephen King's other large books, It, 11/22, 63, Wizard and Glass, are just books that I just enjoyed a little bit more. I think I was more into them. I was more sucked into the story and the plot. The Stand was really, again, I'm not knocking The Stand. It's my 6th favorite read of the year. It's just, I just feel like wasn't as addicted to it as I was those other books. That said, there are some unforgettable characters, moments, quips of dialogue in here, that are just going to stick with me forever. And I do feel like the back half of this book did kind of tend, the more I think on it, it did kind of tend to drag on, especially that final scene trying to make it back. I don't want to give anything away, but it was, it was kind of like, all right, okay, let's get rocking here. The Stand, though, one of Stephen King's best, just an epic and a phenomenal book. If you have it in you to crush this 1,200-page monster and you like Stephen King at least a little bit, this is a very Stephen King-y book. Maybe one of his most Stephen King-y books. And if you know, you know. So, number 6, The Stand. Really, really good. Okay, moving on to number 5. We're getting into the top 5 here. So at number 5, this is a book that I actually wouldn't recommend to everybody because it's just, it's a very slow burn, slow moving plot where it's a lot of hanging around. The characters are not very good people. They're kind of mean. They're not like relatable, However, I absolutely loved it. It is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. This is a book where you just feel like you're accepted into this club, this very exclusive club that you would never otherwise be a part of. And just being a part of this group of people and them trying to figure out this weird situation that they've been placed into was so entertaining, and just something I still can't stop thinking about. A book I think would make just such an incredible early 2000s, late 90s dark academia movie if we could turn back time. I still want them to do it. I don't think it's ever going to happen, but The Secret History was my 5th favorite read of the year. Donna Tartt's writing, she's obviously a very, very smart person because the writing and some of the words that she uses are just like, whoa, okay. I feel like you feel unintentionally smart reading this. But Secret History, Donna Tartt, number 5. I loved it. If you like a slow burn, if you like crappy characters, if you want to have like a love-hate relationship with the people that you're reading about, The Secret History is the one for you. Okay, moving on. We're getting into the top 4 here. At number 4, I had to put in an author that I just love so much. She's someone that I try to recommend to as many people as possible, and I just had to have her in this list because I think she's one of the best writers that I've ever read. Her books are they can be very challenging, but the writing is so beautiful, so poetic, so lyrical, and so gut-wrenching. The way that I'm just going to show you here. I'm picking Sula by Toni Morrison. I could have gone The Bluest Eye, but I'm going with Sula just because it's the one I think about just a little bit more. These aren't super long books. We're at like 160 pages, but it might take you a smidge longer to read than your average 160-page book. Just again, because at least for me, I have to read these books a little bit slower just to fully take everything in because the writing is so lyrical and poetic, and because a lot of the content is very heavy. There is a part in here, I don't want to give anything away, but there's a scene in a Toni Morrison book where someone dies, and you're getting their death from this person's perspective, and it is just the most haunting but beautifully executed paragraph I think I've ever read. I had to pause and show it to my wife, and I was like, read this. Just read this. I know I'm spoiling it, but just read this. And she's the best, man. Highly recommend Toni Morrison. Okay, top 3. So at number 3, I have a coming of age story. This is the best coming of age story I've ever read, and I think that the coming of age trope is my favorite. I'm just a sucker for those types of books. I love them so much. And this one just crushed me. It is The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky, which I was very delighted to have read this year. Probably a book that since high school maybe has kind of been on my radar of like, oh, maybe I would enjoy that book. I wish I had read it in my youth, because I feel like this would have probably hit me even harder back then. I don't know. It hit me hard as a 37-year-old idiot as well. So this is just the format of this book, I think, is what I love the most. We're reading these letters that our main guy, Charlie, is writing to an anonymous person about his experience in entering high school, the friends he's making, the challenges he's facing, the emotions that he's facing. And it's just so real. I think because of that format, it just feels that much more real. And it's a beautifully executed book that I think is the best coming of age story that I've read to date. It's a popular one, everybody's heard of it, but man, it's popular for a reason. It is so dang good. That is my 3rd favorite read of the year. I finished this, I think, in a day. I could not put it down. I wanted to mention to you, there are some fan theories as to who Charlie is writing to. One of them will break your heart. It's the main one, I want to say. And once someone told me that, they were like, hey, did you hear that? It's probably this person he's writing to. I was like, oh no. Oh my gosh. Okay, so moving on to my top 2. The top 2 may not be surprising if you followed me for some time. They are books that I mention quite frequently. One of them is actually a little bit more recent in that I've read it in the last couple months, and that is this one, my number 2 favorite read of the year by one of my favorite authors, if not maybe my favorite author, Steinbeck's East of Eden. This is just... I could have put this at number 1 very easily. The number 1 and 2 spot I think are very interchangeable, but I had to put one at number 1. But however, East of Eden is just this epic life story with multiple characters that are all so alive and just so simple, but so real. They're experiencing life and how to... the amazing thing about this book, I've mentioned this before, is the sprinkles of life knowledge that happen throughout this book in between, kind of interspersed with the story itself, that just are so raw. They're, you're just like, yeah. It's like, you finish reading this just feeling so charged up about life. You're like, oh my gosh, what just happened to me? And the writing is so... this is like a 60-year-old, 70-year-old book, something like that. The writing is so easy to digest. You can jump right into this one. You're going to have no problems whatsoever. East of Eden, Steinbeck says, is the book that he had to basically wait his entire life to write, because it is the book that he was supposed to write, and he did an amazing job. East of Eden, the rumors are true. It is as good as people say it is. I loved it so much. Kathy is the most insane character I've ever read in my life, but I loved it. I just loved everybody. And there's a series coming out, and I just don't even know if I can bring myself to watch it, even if it is really good, because it's one of those things like 11/22/63. This book, it just exists so perfectly in my head after reading it. I don't want to tarnish that at all. East of Eden by John Steinbeck was my number 2 favorite read of the year. I will be recommending that book to everybody until I'm dead, because it is just that good. However, we got to get to number 1. Number 1 is not going to surprise anybody. I hate to... hey, the nice thing is we're at the end of the year. We're going into 2025 now, so I can stop bringing up this book as much as I do. So if you're getting sick of hearing me talk about it, just know we're entering a new year where it's going to be a new me. It'll still come up here and there, but it won't be as nauseating as I'm sure it's been this year. And of course, I am talking about Stoner by John Williams. Stoner by John Williams is my favorite read of the year. There is no book on this list that hit me as hard as this one, and I do basically judge books off of how they actually impact my internal being. And this book did that more than any other book. cliche thing to say as a book reviewer, because I know a lot of people are like, I was dead, I blah blah blah. I quite literally did go lie down after finishing the last page of this book and just kind of thought about life, because this is a very cautionary tale, I want to say, about someone who just kind of floats through life and never really takes a stand, and just it's a very boring story where not a lot happens, to be honest with you. There's not a lot that really goes on in this book, but it's still, when I finished that last sentence on that last page, I was just left completely wrecked. You know, it's so perfectly done. John Williams did such an amazing job at pulling this off that again, by the last sentence, I was thinking about how I was just like, I can't even, see, this is another common thing when people try to review Stoner. They have a very hard time doing it, as do I. It's a tough one to talk about, because there aren't, I can't be like, yeah, and then he goes undercover and tries to find all these like zombies that are, it's like nothing like that is happening. It's just, you know, a guy who becomes a teacher and stays at school and you know, has a normal mundane life, honestly. And I loved it. I loved everything about it. Can't recommend this one enough. Stoner, John Williams, my favorite read of 2024. And so now what I have to do is I have to go back to my top 10 favorite books of all time and reorganize that, because it's been about over a year since I've made that list, and the list has changed substantially. So that is going to be another top 10 coming very soon. It's list week, you know, everybody's popping out their worst reads of the year, their favorite reads of the year, all that stuff. So I love list week because I love seeing other people's favorite books, and yeah. So that's my 10 favorite reads of the year. I hope you enjoyed that. Sorry, this is kind of my format. I just sit here and talk. I don't do a lot of cuts. But yeah, that was that. I hope you guys had an amazing year reading in 2024. I'm not doing this just for engagement, but I would genuinely love to know what your number one favorite read was in the comments. Also, please hit that subscribe button. I don't care, but also that'd be nice. Okay, so anyways, guys, thanks for watching this. Tune in next week. I got some new books to talk about, and I love ya. Bye-bye.